Now I'm going to talk to you about, this is the ordinary magic stuff of caregiving. So I'm going to tell you, this is a program I like a lot, but just the concepts in it are really simple, and it's designed originally for new parents in hospital, but it's now given to parents prenatally, postpartum, and I'm just going to walk you through it. And what it involves is, you know, if I was delivering this to you, I would be coming to your house maybe and giving you a pamphlet a week, and we talk a little bit, but I'm going to try and do it in the next 15 minutes. But basically, it covers these things. Infant states, these are things that evidence has told us it's really great for parents to know about when they have a new baby. Infant states, behaviors, cues, how to modulate states, which is just basically how to change your baby state, how to wake up a baby, how to settle a baby, and the feeding interaction. So first I'm going to talk about states and modulation. So, and the reason, again, I'm telling you this is because if you can understand these things, it makes you a better observer of your child, so that you can be so you're more sensitive and you can respond more appropriately. So, infant states, different levels of sleeping and waking, we call them states. It's the basis for understanding infant behavior. But you know, again, think about this in terms of adult behavior. We have these states as well, and we have three types. There's sleep states, transitional, which is like drowsy, and then awake states. So here they are. We have the sleep states. We have drowsy. We have active and quiet alert. And this is the key thing that you need to know is when is your child in quiet alert? That's the best time to interact. And of course, we all know what crying looks like. So infants have active sleep and quiet sleep. And when infants first fall asleep, they're in active sleep, and they move around quite a lot, and they might make sounds and that kind of thing. And actually, new parents will often think their baby's awake, and they'll pick the baby up. But no, just have a look. Are their eyes closed? Yes. Are they? And just wait, because they'll fall into quiet asleep. If their eyes aren't opening, they're not awake. So they'll fall into quiet asleep after a period of time. In quiet sleep, the babies are quite still, but you'll see movement behind the eyes. You'll see the eyes moving, and that's when you know the baby's in the quiet sleep state. And they can sleep through quite a lot then. And as babies mature, they go between active and quiet, and then into active again, and they start linking these sleep states together, and they start sleeping for longer periods of time. And of course, we know what drowsy looks like. And drowsy is not a good time to interact, feed, or play with babies. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like they're sleepy, they're yawning. There's not that. But again, it's just reminding people these basic things, just like with adults, as with babies. You know, when someone's tired and drowsy, and you're working with them, they're not the best. You know, they're not going to function to their utmost. Now, the awake states, the quiet alert, is a really important state to be able to recognize. And let me see here. Okay. So quiet alert state, it's characterized by less body activity, eye movement, but it's toward the caregiver. The breathing is very regular, and they're going to be really responsive to stimuli. So if you're trying to identify quiet alert, that would help you. And if you can identify your infant state, it does impact on the quality of the interaction. So you don't want to interact with a drowsy baby. You don't want to you want to wake your drowsy baby up for better feeding and that kind of thing. And so again, the infant state's influenced by things in the environment and also things from within the baby. So, you know, are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they, you know, having some discomfort? Do they have a wet diaper, which is quite uncomfortable? Or are they, you know, is there something in the environment that's making them not able to stay in that quiet alert state? And so if I'm going to differentiate quiet alert from active alert's a lot like fussy. So again, fussy, if your baby's becoming fussy, you want to do things to try and regulate the baby's state, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So in the quiet alert state, the baby is awake and calm, just looking around, not fussy, whiny, or unhappy, and will seem to be at peace. And when you see your baby in that position, that's a great time to interact. And I can't tell you how many times I've been out in the mall or shops or whatever, in the restaurants, and the baby's there on the floor in the car seat, wide awake. They've just woke up because they had to sleep on the way over to the restaurant. Baby's wide awake on the floor in this state, and all the adults are doing their own thing. And I'm thinking they're missing out on that opportunity right now with that baby to create a really positive interaction, learning for the baby, positive relationship building for the mother, father, baby. So really pay attention to those opportunities. And that's when you do the serve and return. That's when you do it. That's when you do the serve and return. You don't really, I mean, serve and return happens at other times too. You know, baby's tired. You notice, you put the baby to sleep. That's serve and return too. But the real serve and return that's going to really build the brain is when the baby's in that quiet alert state. Okay, so things that you can do. It's really, when someone is ready to interact with you, what do? You talk to them. For babies, you want to use lots of language. It helps build their cognitive capacity. You walk around the house, point out items to them, and just use the time to be active with the baby. You know, play with the baby, do exercises. You can give them a bath, you give them a massage, whatever fun things that you can find. And so state modulation. So now, once you know about states, how do you modulate states? So we talk about how to wake up babies for good feeding, good interaction, and we talk about how to settle babies when they're fussy or in that active phase of awake. And babies often need help from their parents to make these changes, especially when the younger they are, and as they grow older and more mature, they start to do it on their own, right? But what do we talk about in terms of, for experienced parents, this is like, oh, obvious, right? But it's variety to awaken and repetition to soothe. You know, when you're soothing a baby, it's the rocking, that sort of thing, over and over again, soothing voice. So we'll talk about that first. Repetition to soothe, yeah. To soothe an infant, repeat one or more comforting actions over and over, pacing slow, rhythmical, unchanging, and provided in a calming manner, and repetition works best. And you can do things like show your baby your face, hold their arms close to their body. This is for you as a new mom, this is a big one actually. You don't often think of, but if baby's upset, you just kind of put their arms on there, tied in, or put them in a blanket, and that helps settle them quite often when they're quite young. And all these other things. So those state modulation. And then you also need to wake babies up to feed, generally when they're younger, and that helps them to be able to, as they grow, helps them to modulate their own states. And that's another way of thinking about self-regulation. We talked about regulation. States modulation is a lot like emotion regulation as the child grows older. So use variety. Wake your baby up. They like to hear your voice and see your face, and you can undress them, and then put your face, that's 7 to 8 inches away from the newborn is when they can see you best. It's like the breastfeeding distance or the feeding distance. And make your voice high or low, so modulate it, sit your baby up, brush their cheek. These are the things you can do to help wake up your baby. All right. Okay. So in parents who learn these principles, report that they feel more competent and confident, especially when baby settles. When your baby's crying and you can settle that baby, that's a great feeling. And awakening techniques lead to more socially responsive infants and also lead to better feedings. And that's why the feeding interaction is something we talk about a lot, because it happens many times a day, and you have babies eat better when they're awake, and feeding is social. From infancy on, it's social. So waking your baby up to feed is a good idea. So infant behavior, well, some people just breastfeed and baby's half asleep. So, it's sort of missing out an opportunity sometimes. So infant behavior, if parents know what babies are capable of, it helps parents to respond more appropriately. So it's the first opportunity for observing the developing caregiver relationship. And infant behavior does, one of the big points about this is that infant behavior varies between babies. So babies are different in terms of how alert they are, how visually responsive they are, how much they respond to sound, how consolable they are. We know that in terms of the colic. Some kids are quite easy, and some kids are not. How readable babies are different. So some kids give really clear cues and some don't. So this is just important for parents to know. Some parents, I heard your parents say, my baby just was never very cuddly. And that's normal. That's okay. Some babies just aren't very cuddly. Some babies smile a lot and some babies smile less. But these are, there's a range of behaviors. And one of the things we like to talk to parents about is habituation, how some kids can, babies can get, if there's things in their environment that are keeping them awake or whatever, they can close them right out and go to sleep early on. So babies can see, babies can see. And they can see best when they're newborns, about 7 to 8 inches away, and as they grow over the first year of life, they can see farther away. But early they really like to focus on faces. You don't need toys for babies. The faces, your face, patterns, colors, black, white, and red, those are what babies see best, but you really don't need toys for newborns. And for kids up to maybe age 3 months, you really don't need toys. You're the toy. That's the best. That's the best time for you and baby, is being together and just looking and cooing and that kind of thing. Of course, babies can turn their head towards sounds, and one of the things that we like to do is get a parent to talk, and the baby will turn their head. And even when they're very immature and their head's kind of wobbling as they turn, babies can hear, they can locate the direction of sound. And this is just you can try that with your baby. Just be in a quiet room, have dad to one side, and see if the baby will turn to dad's voice, and they will, they do. So we talked a little bit about habituation. One thing is that if babies are sleeping too much, sometimes it means that there's a little bit more, they're having a hard time shutting out noises or lights that bother them, and move them to a quieter place. You kind of see this with kids that are born preterm. They learn, because of hospitals, to habituate and shut things out. I'm just kind of going through these things as varieties of children's behavior. And some kids are more consolable than others. One thing, we talked a bit about, the state modulation, how you can console babies. But babies can console themselves. And one of my big pet peeves is people that put gloves on their babies or those little mitts, because you're taking away a self-soothing technique. And so, babies, that's what they do. Sucking is a way of babies to maintain or return from a distressed state to a quiet alert state, or maintain their quiet alert state. So, allow them to do that. The thumb sucking that parents are worried about really doesn't happen if they've got a secure attachment. If everything's going fine. The long-term problem, people don't suck their thumbs until their 20s, but parents are concerned about that. And I think it's a shame, because when they take away the child's ability to self-soothe, the child is, at a loss for finding an activity, and it becomes to rely very much on the parent. All right. So basically the point here is to take the time to get to know how readable, how consolable, how all those behaviors, how your child is, how easygoing, how cuddly your child is, because it helps you you're getting to know the personality of your child. And now the feeding interaction is where we put it all together. And so feeding is social, as I said, and you're doing it many times a day. It's a big opportunity for serve and return. It's a big opportunity for babies to make cues to you, and then parent to respond. So it's another way to learn your baby's special language. And I mean, it happens many times a day, but so do other things. Like as I've said before, this could easily be, the diaper change is more than just the diaper change, or putting the baby in the car seat is more than just putting the baby in the car seat. I mean, it's just these opportunities that we have that we should take advantage of to do serve and return. And so, baby needs to be held usually during feeding. They need to be held when they're younger, and as they grow older, they can sit up. But, the babies need moms to hold the baby close, make sure they feel safe, and they can see your eyes and face. And this is really important in terms of positioning. If you want to have a good serve and return, you've got to be able to see the baby. You've got to be able to see the cues, right? So the position of the baby's on the lap with the back, the back against the chest, it's not a good position for serve and return. One of the best things to do to promote better serve and return relationship is have the baby facing the mom. So that might mean that the baby's propped on a pillow or something, but the face-to-face is really important. I mean, it's just like eating. If you're eating at the table and someone's like facing away from you at the dinner table, it's pretty bizarre, isn't it? I mean, it's just not how we function. So we talked about how you should wake babies up to feed better, and parents should just take time to bring their baby to a fully awake state. And safety, babies need to have their head supported. And if upset, mom needs to soothe, or dad needs to soothe the baby. So those are kind of straightforward things that this serve and return that happens naturally in the feeding interaction can happen a lot better if parents are positioning the babies well and just paying attention to what the babies are doing. And being that, being that reliable person that's going to respond when they're distressed. Now the thing that I kind of saved my favorite part of this whole thing for last, it's the infant cues. So what are the infant cues that tell us babies want to engage or disengage? They want to be with you, or they need a break from the interaction. So all babies have behaviors. I think you got that in spades now. They have behaviors that tell you what they need. Babies are able to express cues from the moment they're born that tell you what they need. And babies have ways that they, just like us, that they tell us they're engaging or disengaging. So some of them are easy, like if babies are looking at you or smiling, and looking relaxed. Some of those are just like what you are all displaying right now. You seem to be engaged in the interaction, and I can. That tells me that you want me to continue. There's some things that are a little little sort of unique to babies. So babies have their skin, they'll get red or they'll get pale. That tells you that they want to disengage. But normal skin color, they're engaged in the interaction. They want it. It's a time that they're probably in quiet alert and they want to interact with you. Sucking is another one. When babies are sucking away, it's often feeding related, and they're engaging. They're ready to interact and do that serve and return. Now, the things that babies tell you they need a break in the interaction. There's a lot of them, and they're not that different from what we notice in adults too. So, yawning. If you're yawning, you're getting kind of tired of whatever's going on. You need a break from it. Looking away, squirming, frantic activity, arms and legs pushing away. They're kind of obvious, but skin color changes would tell you the baby's disengaging from the interaction. What this means is, so babies in quiet alert when they're engaging, but they can't engage forever, just like we had the little experiment when I was looking at your eyes and you looked away. Babies will do some of these things, but if a parent notices the cue and kind of just backs off a little bit, the child will often turn back, and then the interaction will continue. It's when the parent sees this and then doesn't see this and keeps persisting in the interaction, reading the book or playing with the toy or whatever, that the child will become, the child won't re-engage. The child will display these even more, and it makes for the interaction ends, right? So that's what we talk about. We talk about how parents are regulators. You really have to be watching and trying to regulate the child's state and the child's interest in the activity by backing off or engaging in response to the child. Okay, and it's quite natural. And I'm kind of dissecting it here, but it is actually quite natural. Just paying attention. All right. So another thing to point out is that no one cue is singular value. So it's important to look at the whole interaction because, a baby might be squirming a lot, but if they're looking at you and they're doing other things, it's just engagement. It's like, what are they doing mostly? So you look for the main cues. And cues aren't good or bad. They're just forms of communication, right? So here's some pictures of engaging babies. So it's pretty obvious, right? I mean, a lot of it is eye contact, smiling, reaching. The engagement cues are so easy to see. It's the disengaging cues that are a little bit harder. And the sensitive parents are the ones that notice the subtler disengaging cues and back off at the right time and don't persist when the child needs a break. Because, babies' attention spans are very, 5 to 10 seconds at birth, and then it kind of gradually gets longer over the first year of life. So disengaging cues. I mean, some of them are obvious, yawning and sleeping, right? But then there's the other ones, like the turning away. And some of the things that babies do too is they'll grab their clothes. And just kind of telling you subtly that they're just a little bit overstimulated, it's a little bit too much, they need a little break, right? They just need a little break. So, and as I was saying before, if the baby looks away, is grabbing the clothes or whatever, and the parent kind of, say you're playing with the baby and the baby's on the pillow and baby's starting to look away, you just kind of back off and stop what you're doing, wait for a minute, wait for a second, wait for that baby to turn back to you, and then you start again. Following the baby's lead is really all it is. Now I wanted to show you, here's some more examples. So turning away, the grimacing, like sort of the tight lips is another one. And just think, when you're stressed out, what do? You go, you grit your teeth. The baby's doing the same thing. And the tight arms, like just sort of, rather than the relaxed arms. And anyway, so these are some examples of things that kids do when they're disengaging. A critical aspect of regulating a baby's state, again, this is an important statement, and I think once you've seen the video, it makes more sense. But a critical aspect of regulating a baby's state involves modulating the intensity of the stimulus or stress to engage or sustain the baby's attention. So that's what parents do, is they're modulating baby states, they're helping them get into quiet alert, they're noticing when they're in quiet alert, they're trying to do things that are following the child's lead. I heard it described earlier, if you don't like serve and return, you can talk about being a dance, the parents noticing the cue and the parents stepping forward or stepping back, depending on what the child is cueing them. And that enables the child, that's stress regulating, it prevents the child from having the prolonged stress response, and it also helps brain development. So, two great things happen with serve and return. And so in this way, mothers and fathers are the hidden regulators of their infant's physiology. And as children grow and they start to manage their own physiology, they do it on their own. But certainly from birth to 8, 9 months of age, they're quite reliant on their parents to help manage their environment and manage their states by providing certain inputs for kids so that you can keep them there or change their states as appropriate, wake them up to feed or that kind of thing. So in summary, babies are capable of communicating, and they have lots of amazing capabilities. And by learning their special language, by just paying attention intensely, you'll learn your baby's language, and your baby will learn that they can trust you, and that the adults in their world are going to be there for them to love, protect, and enjoy them. And that's the end. Thank you.